Here with me now is Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Thank you so much for joining me this morning, sir. Let's start with the hostages.
Thank you.
Hamas still has more than 130 hostages, including the U.S. government believes 8 Americans. What should Israel and the U.S. do right now to get them out?
Well, I guess just keep talking, and I would put more pressure on Iran. You know, Hamas doesn't exist without Iranian help. You know, our soldiers are being hit in Syria and Iraq by Shiite militia controlled by Iran. So what I would do is flip the script here. I would go to Iran and say, listen, you know, you need to tell Hamas to let these hostages go. If you don't, you're going to start paying a heavier price.
And you think that just that pressure on Iran will actually produce hostages being returned? Do you think it's potentially as simple? I mean, there's nothing simple here. I don't want to oversimplify it, but that is...
No, you're right. Here's what I believe. If Iran felt they were threatened by Hamas's behavior, they would have Hamas change their behavior. But Israel's going back to the fight. So here's the big question. You know, Vice President Harris has said, you know, Israel has the right to defend themselves. How you do it matters. The Secretary of Defense said it'd be a strategic failure for Israel to have killed too many Palestinians. I don't want any innocent Palestinian to die. But how do you do this? Vice President Harris, tell Israel how to destroy Hamas in a way not to hurt innocent Palestinians, and I'll pass it along. I don't know how to do this because Hamas is integrated into the apartments, the schools, and the hospitals. They have tunnels all over the place. The reason so many Palestinians are dying, I think, is because Hamas wants them to die. So if you got ideas about lessening civilian casualties, let me know. I'll tell Israel, or you tell them directly. But the idea of Hamas still standing when this is over would be the ultimate strategic failure.
Well, the reason she said that, obviously, and what Secretary Austin said, which I'll get to in a minute, is because they believe that too many Palestinian civilians have been killed. Do you agree with that?
Well, tell us how to do it differently. Yeah, what is too many people dying in World War II after Pearl Harbor? Did the American public worry about how many people were dying to destroy Tokyo and Berlin? I know this is not the same, but it's similar. I mean, after October the 7th, Israel's at total war with Hamas. What they did, you won't even show on television, probably because you can't. So the bottom line here is no Republican believes this, by the way. No Republican is telling Israel to change their military tactics, because I don't know how to change them. I think the goal of destroying Hamas is important for Israel, really important for the Palestinians, and Hamas is making it impossible for Israel to fight without hurting innocent people.
There's the humanitarian aspect, which we were just talking about. Then there's the strategic question, which you have experience with in other parts of the world when the U.S. has been in conflicts. And so I want to go back to what you alluded to, which is what the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said yesterday. He said, if you drive civilians into the arms of the enemy, you replace a tactical victory with a strategic defeat, which he's saying that civilian casualties could create even more enemies. Does he have a point?
No, he's so naive. I mean, I've just lost all confidence in this guy. How about focusing on protecting our soldiers, men and women in Syria and Iraq? Strategic defeat would be inflaming the Palestinians. They're already inflamed. They're taught from the time they're born to hate the Jews and to kill them. They're taught math by if you had 10 Jews, you kill 6. How many would you have left? It's like this is a tranquil population only inflamed after Israel goes in to defend itself. Is really naive. This is a radicalized population. I don't want to kill innocent people, but Israel is fighting not just Hamas, but the infrastructure around Hamas. Look what happened to the Israeli hostages when they were presented to the Palestinian population. It's beyond naive. Strategic failure is letting Hamas stand. But here's the question for the world. When Hamas is defeated, what happens next? That's when I want the Arab world, the United States, and the Western world to come in with a governing plan different than we have today for the Palestinian people. I want to come in for a better life for the Palestinian people after you destroy Hamas.
Well, a couple of things there. One is, you said you've lost confidence now in Secretary Austin.
You've been
a supporter.
Anybody Yeah, well, I like Secretary Austin personally, but this war has shown to me he doesn't understand. If we were attacked like this, which we were in 9/11, if somebody had called for us within 2 months to have a ceasefire against Al Qaeda, we'd have laughed them out of town. We'd have run them out of town. You know, Secretary Austin is telling Israel things that are impossible to achieve. Secretary Austin, the reason Palestinians are dying, Gaza is so condensed. Hamas has tunnels under apartments, under schools, under hospitals. If you've got a better idea of how to destroy Hamas, pass it on. Quit criticizing Israel in public.
I want to move on, but just to quickly follow up, you well know that General Stanley Mccristal in another war has called, I think what Secretary Austin was referring to, insurgent math. Each innocent person that is killed ultimately creates new insurgents. Do you agree with that?
I get the theory, but here's what I would tell General Mccristal and Austin. The population has been radicalized for decades. You don't get that? Do you know what they teach in the schools? The idea that somehow Israel is radicalizing the people in Gaza is ridiculous. They've been radicalized by Hamas for years.
Okay, Senator, I want to talk about what you and the Congress will do. As you well know, that there's a big tug of war over foreign aid to Israel and Ukraine. You and your fellow Republicans want to include border security and new immigration restrictions. You haven't been able to make a deal yet. Would you still vote for that foreign aid if immigration is not included?
No. I think there are votes for Israel apart from the package. Republicans overwhelmingly support Israel, so do most Democrats. Republicans are divided on Ukraine. Republicans are 100% behind strong border security. If you want aid to Ukraine, we need to control our southern border. We're having, Dana, 9,000 people a day come for the last week. There's no end to this wave of illegal immigration. You have to change your asylum laws and your parole laws to stop the flow. So I will not vote for any aid until we secure our own border. Reform asylum, reform parole is possible to do. Democrats don't want to do it. All Republicans want to do it. I'm not helping Ukraine until we help ourselves.
Senator, you said this week that Texas Governor Greg Abbott should send migrants to states like Rhode Island and Oregon and Connecticut, where Democratic senators oppose this new stricter asylum provision that you want. Have you heard back from Governor Abbott?
Yeah. No, I'm going to go visit. So here's the problem. You got 11 Democratic senators signing a letter resisting changing the laws that attract so many illegal immigrants. 6 million people were encountered in 2023. Texas has been overrun. The Democratic position is remain in Texas. What I'm telling Governor Abbott, why don't you send thousands of these illegal immigrants to the states where these senators wrote the letters, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Oregon, and let them understand what it's like to live with a broken border. The towns in Texas along the border are virtually being destroyed. 6 million people have come into our country illegally in FY23 with no end in sight.
And what do you say to those who say that these are human beings and they're not pawns on a chessboard, and just moving them to different states may not be the most humane move if you want to make a political point?
Yeah. Well, is it inhumane to live in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Oregon, Rhode Island? It's about making it real to people who refuse to fix the problem. I've been involved in immigration reform for decades. This is a national security problem. We have a completely broken border. Afghanistan started the rise of terrorism. Now you have the Hamas attack in Israel. This is not about fixing a broken immigration system. It's about fixing a broken border. To my Democratic colleagues, if you don't understand what it's like from illegal immigration, overwhelming effect on your communities, you need to experience. Look what happened in New York. The governor and mayor of New York are begging for help. So to my Democratic colleagues who want Texas to bear this burden, forget it. They should be sending them to you. It's not inhumane to live in Connecticut.
Let's talk about the 2024 campaign trail. Donald Trump called Obamacare a disaster last night in Iowa after reiterating his calls to repeal it. You, of course, voted to repeal Obamacare when Trump was president. Do you think that this is a winning issue right now? Would you like to see another vote again if Trump is elected?
Here's what, good question. This is what we tried to do when Trump was president. Let's block grant the money. The money that we have in Washington to administer Obamacare is controlled by bureaucrats you'll never meet. Let's take that money, send it back to the states, make sure it's spent on health care, and see if governors and state legislators can come up for better ways. Yeah, I'm okay. I'd like to get the money and power out of Washington back to the states. Yeah, I think we should block grant it back to the states rather than let bureaucrats in Washington run our health care. Socialized medicine doesn't work. Get the money and power out of Washington, get it in the hands of the people closest to the patient.
Senator, before I let you go, I want to ask you about your fellow Republican former Congresswoman Liz Cheney. She has a new book out. She sat down for an interview this weekend, and she said she's worried that the chance of a second Trump presidency means the U.S. is, quote, sleepwalking into a dictatorship. You, of course, have endorsed Donald Trump. What's your reaction?
Yeah. I think a continuation of the Biden presidency would be a disaster for peace and prosperity at home and abroad. Our border's broken. The only person really going to fix a broken border is Donald Trump. When he was president, none of this stuff was going on in Ukraine. You know, Hamas and all these other terrorist groups were afraid of Trump. I think Liz's hatred of Trump is real. I understand why people don't like what he does and says at times, but in terms of actions and results, he was far better president for Biden. And if we have 4 more years of this, Liz Cheney, then we won't recognize America and the world will be truly on fire.
Okay, Senator Lindsey Graham, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you.